coming. I am Laurie Kolpan. I am real quick, I know some people know me, but just give you my quick backstory. So I am a Hunterdon County local, grew up, went to high school at Del Val, and I did undergrad at Bucknell in Pennsylvania, went to Rutgers for medical school where I met my husband, was called Robert Wood Johnson back then, and we did our training in family practice here at Hunterdon. We left the area a little bit. I was in the Air Force, but we always knew we wanted to come back because Hunterdon is just an amazing place to live and raise children. I worked in resident education my entire career up until June, and so very familiar with sort of the traditional Western medicine model. I always had a very holistic approach to medicine. I always thought that lifestyle was really important in terms of how we live, in terms of health. I was having a different talk with another group a couple weeks ago, and in family medicine, we really pride ourselves on prevention. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? We actually don't really do a lot of preventative medicine. We do early detection. We're good at making sure that you have your mammograms and your pap smears and that we check that you don't have diabetes yet. But we're not getting enough time to talk about how you specifically live and how to help you prevent those kind of diseases from happening. Everyone says you should eat well. Everyone says you should exercise. If it was that easy, we wouldn't have the chronic condition rate we have today. So in 2017, I went to my first integrative medicine conference, and it was like, I'd come home, because these were a group of people who were not bashers of Western medicine. Like, Western medicine's amazing. Western medicine is why we're able to cure the number of things that we can cure, the things we can operate on today, the stents we can put in hearts, like what we can do is amazing. It's the delivery system that's broken. And so I wound up doing a fellowship in integrative medicine, and last October opened my own practice, which was crazy town to me because I have zero business background at all. But I love my job. I love it. I see wonderful people, and we have time. That's what really makes healthcare different, in my opinion, is the ability of time. So, so this particular lecture I gave for the first time maybe 6 months ago, because I got a lot of questions on, well, how should I eat to optimize exercise? Like, do you eat protein before exercise or after exercise? How about carbs? Should you carb load? And then there's all these supplements there are literally hundreds of different supplements, probably thousands of supplements that you can do to enhance exercise. Like, what's the evidence? What's safe? Should people take them or not? And I kind of have this talk geared to everybody, although I'll hone it more to, I think we're more like the everyday exerciser in here. Just out of curiosity, is anyone exercising regularly here? Excellent. Is anyone a competitive, is anyone doing races or doing competitions, that kind of thing?
Just with each other.
Excellent. Always, that's the spice of life right there. How about kids that compete? Yeah. So I'll touch a little bit, like some of this stuff is honestly stuff that I wish I knew when my kids were. Good, thank you. We're athletes. So real quick, we're gonna do general nutrition concepts, okay? Because how you eat on the day-to-day really impacts your ability to perform and to improve your health, right? We know that chronic conditions, the main drivers for chronic condition, and even any Western doctor would tell you this, it's the standard American diet and a lack of movement. So kudos for already being people who are moving, which is great. Then we'll talk about specific recommendations for macronutrients. These are the carbs, fats, and proteins relating to exercise. I did, for this talk, try to be as evidence-based as I can. So this is, when it comes to looking at things like nutrition and supplements, there are many, many, many opinions out there. And I wanted to be scientific, so most of the nutrition stuff is gonna be from the position paper from the American, no, come on in, no worries. From the American College of Sports Medicine's position paper on nutrition and athletic performance, and then a lot of other information for supplements is from this, as well as the International Society for Sports Nutrition. I will tell you when there's things that just aren't as evidenced that I'm presenting, but most everything's coming from there. We'll talk a little bit about hydration, and then supplements again, what has safety, what is truly effective, okay? I can't stress enough that daily nutrition matters. I would love to give this to the youngins because, you know, they get so focused on protein after exercise and carb loading and all this kind of stuff. And then they're eating the standard American diet on the day-to-day. And so when you don't have that anti-inflammatory whole food diet, that's what's going to give you a stable source of energy. It also gives you the requirements you need to optimize body composition. So we're going to talk a lot about muscle building, particularly for this overall age group, because anyone who's 50 and over, actually 40 and over, is when we really start to lose our ability to put new muscle on easily. We start to lose muscle, and you see this through the years. If you look at people over the decades, there is a relative muscle wasting. And we'll talk about why that is. You need those components, you need a good protein source all the time, good carbohydrates and healthy fats. Like I said, you're gonna get for people who just do the standard American diet, irregular energy availability, they have inflammation. Inflammation is going to increase your risk of injury and delay recovery. You won't repair as much if you're having a lot of ultra-processed food or sugars. So you want that good nutrition on the day-to-day. And then the nutrition strategy kind of depends on what your overall goal is for exercise. So is your overall goal to build muscle, increase strength? Is your overall goal to lose weight? And by the way, those can absolutely go hand in hand, okay? Particularly over the age of 45. Is your goal for endurance? You're looking to increase how long you can go, how far you can go. You're looking to be less short of breath. Is your goal for sprints? So you want that short burst of energy. And depending on what you're looking for is going to tailor how you want to eat pre and post workout. We always want to think about what your current energy requirements are, because at the end of the day, when we're talking about weight, it is energy in and energy out, right? So yes, there are certain eating styles that work for certain people, low carb, all that kind of stuff. I would say in general, an anti-inflammatory diet is beneficial for every single person. At the end of the day, if you are taking more calories in than you are putting out, you will gain weight. If you are burning more calories than you're putting in, you will lose weight. So kind of knowing what are your energy requirements. For athletes, what are the things that might increase their energy requirements? So if they are exercising in extreme heat or cold, they have an increased energy expenditure. Fear. So actually giving a little bit, and fear being a good thing. So like you have that competition, you're super hyped up, you're super excited, you're actually burning a little more. You want to load in a little bit more before those events, those super sort of stressful, but it's stress in a good way events. Altitude, and for women who are menstruating, the luteal, the second phase of the menstrual cycle actually requires a little bit more energy. So for my female athletes who are like elite athletes, that's something we talk about. This is the big thing, I think, for most of us in the day-to-day exercise category, and that is, you know, we get used to eating a certain amount and we're exercising, and now we have an injury, or we have a vacation, or it's holidays and the family's coming, and we don't make those adjustments. So when you are out of your exercise routine, that's a time to maybe decrease the energy in. For the athletes off season, my daughter was a swimmer through college. Division III, so she had an off season. Division I, a lot of them don't get it, but she had an off season, and those swimmers, man, they burn a lot of calories on the day-to-day. the off season, some of her friends really struggled because they were used to eating an extra 2,000 calories every day. That didn't change during that time. So some sort of overall things to keep in mind. So we're gonna start with our macros, and the first one is carbohydrate. Carbohydrates sometimes get vilified. People think carbs are like the thing that's gonna cause them to gain weight, and people tend to avoid them. The thing is, carbs are essential for maximal performance. If you want maximal performance in exercise, they are going to yield the greatest amount of ATP. That's the building block to mitochondria. Mitochondria is what makes your energy. Mitochondria builds muscle. Mitochondria repairs muscle. Mitochondria gives energy, okay? So if you're not, and so now we will talk in the next slide about what kind of carbs. The problem, this is why carbs get vilified, is that our body's ability to store carbohydrates is low. We actually can't store that many of them. We store it as glycogen in muscle and liver, but once those glycogen stores are full, the rest is gonna go to fat. So overdoing carbs can lead to fat, but carbs themselves are not the villain, okay? If we are exercising on depleted glycogen stores, and there are times when one would want to do that, talk about that next. But when and you probably have all had this experience, it's been a long exercise, you're at the end of it, you're now relying on fat breakdown to get your sugar for your muscles, you feel a little more fatigued. It takes more to work. You're never gonna get the highest level of performance on depleted glycogen stores. Some athletes do that for a reason, but in general, we need carbohydrate for maximum performance. Any questions about that? Okay. So some strategies depending on your activity, okay? So if you are an athlete in competition, or you have a run coming up, like maybe a 5K, something big that you're planning, you just really wanna have your best workout. You wanna concentrate the carbs that you would have in that day before, so that you really wanna do a lot of pre-workout carbs. For most of us, the steady and exercises and just for general health, you want really to spread your carbohydrates throughout the day with maybe a little bit of a burst pre-workout. Again, to give you that energy for your workout. You don't need massive amounts, as opposed to somebody who's gonna do really intense, they want their highest quality performance. For endurance, so long distance running, long distance swimming, long distance biking, dance marathon, whatever. If that's the kind of thing that you do a lot, you actually wanna get your body used to working in depleted glycogen store, because it's gonna happen, right? So if you practice that way, if you want to work on marathons or work on increased running, or if you're an athlete and you're working on those long things, then doing fasting exercise actually does have a benefit there, because it's gonna get your body used to that. Or for athletes, sometimes they'll do back-to-back practices. It takes at least 8 hours to replete glycogen stores. So if you go quickly, even if you ate a ton of carbs in between the two workouts, you won't make glycogen. So then, which kind of carbs when? That's my daughter's swim team, by the way, in college. That's her. So pre-event fueling. So if this is, you want a little carb burst before you exercise, or certainly before events, you want something that is gonna turn to sugar easy. So this is what we call mid to high glycemic index. The glycemic index is how quickly does something turn to sugar when you eat it. Glucose, table sugar, is 100. It has a glycemic index of 100. You also want something that's easily digested. So you want glucose coming in pre-exercise. You want something that's easily digestible because you don't want a lot of your blood going to your gut. So this is gonna be things like banana, fruit juice. I'm never a fruit juice person, but pre-event, that's actually not a bad thing. You will never ever hear me say to have white bread, except particularly for the athletes, for the youngins. White bread, so Wonder, by the way, has a glycemic index of 100. It is the same as table sugar. you don't ever need it. But for like the swimming event, or my son when he's doing a big event, doing that with a little bit of like maybe peanut butter before, perfect. Or even in between. Yogurt is a mid-glycemic index. Obviously it needs to be regular yogurt, not the aspartame sweetened yogurt. Sports drinks, those are all things that you can do pre and even during. So that used to be thought, once you're exercising, don't ever have anything else to eat because you're gonna shunt blood flow to the gut. More research has been done, and again, these are according to position papers. It is actually found to be beneficial if you're gonna do 45 minutes of exercise or more to actually have a little sugar. So rather that's a sports drink that has glucose, that Wonder Bread with a little peanut butter, a little bite of banana, something like that, that actually does enhance feelings of well-being as well as performance. And again, you want that a high glycemic index. Lower glycemic index carbs, these are things like legumes, nuts, veggies, pasta. These are things that don't turn to sugar easy. This is what we should be having on the day-to-day. Like this is really the majority of your carbs should be low glycemic index carbs. And I would even say the pasta, though it is a little lower glycemic index, I prefer pastas that are gonna be single grain, so like a single grain semolina, so not so highly processed, lower glycemic index, or the bean pastas, if you can tolerate them. Like my kids have said no. But there's one brand and called Brahmi that I really like because it has a combination of lupelli bean and semolina. Really good. Just a little bit al dente, but not at all texture funky. Looks and tastes like regular pasta. Kid approved. That's what you want to eat throughout the day. Carb loading. Should you carb load and when? And I love to, so the swim picture's up there because I love to tell the story of my daughter's swim team in high school and carb loading. So we'll say that carb loading is great. You really are maximizing those glycogen stores. This is going to be for big events, more than 90 minutes of sustained or frequent exercise. You want it to be low glycemic index. You don't want to burn it quick. You want that to go to glycogen. And 36 to 48 hours before the event. So tell me what's wrong with this picture. So every swim meet in high school, we would have a pasta party the night before. Pasta party is at 6 p.m. Swim meets at 4 p.m. the next day. So already the timing is off. I would make a gigantic bowl of pasta. I would have a bowl of salad, and each swimmer would bring enough dessert to feed the entire team. The pasta had a good hurting. No one touched the vegetables. And there was nary a cookie to be found at the end of that. So wrong, and if you've ever been to a high school swim meet, nobody's swimming 90 minutes. Like you're standing on the deck waiting. So, you know, this is an example of really actually increasing that inflammatory products, because this is what the teens do, right? They had so much sugar. They're increasing inflammation in the body. They increase the risk of injury and decrease repair if they do that. So, you know, there is a good reason to educate people on why they would have good nutrition. Have a cookie. Like I'm not against the cookie or my dark chocolate. Something's a little sweet, but nothing that's gonna harm you. Okay. Questions about carbs? We're gonna move on to proteins. Okay. So proteins is our next macro. This is a big one that I like to talk with this age group because I feel like everyone around our age should be wanting to add muscle. Like I said earlier, we lose the ability to do that as easily as we age. Certainly by 45 or older, that starts to go down. Muscle is our longevity organ. If you want to live long and well, so not being wheeled around and, you know, someone having to do, you know, being independent, doing the things you want to do, you want muscle. Muscle sets your metabolic rate, so muscle tells you how many calories you get to eat. Muscle stabilizes blood sugar, so that's going to decrease your risk for diabetes, then also high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all the funs. And muscle supports our bones so that we have better balance and we decrease our risk of falling. These are all super important things as we age. in order to build muscle, we need protein, okay? So the recommended daily allowance is 0.8 grams per kilogram per day of ideal body weight. Average adult, 70 kilos. By the way, that is not the average American adult. The average American female is 77 kilos, average American male is 90 plus kilos. Let's say where we're average, requires the RDA is 56 grams of protein a day. I have patients who are not getting 56 grams of protein a day. And that really, the RDA for so many things is less than what is ideal. This is the recommend, like kind of it's like the bare minimum. If you want to add muscle, so muscle synthesis, if you want to build muscle, 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day. And for athletes, and this is where I know maybe we're not thinking of ourselves as athletes, but we should all be in this range, 1.2 to 2 kilograms per day. Anyone who's seen me knows that I say about 100 grams of protein a day. It's a lot of protein. It's a lot of protein. Muscle protein synthesis is increased in that 24 hours after a lift. So anytime you're doing resistance training, that's a good time to optimize protein. I think every day we should be shooting for good protein, but on the lift days, really hit it. And many studies, again, this is good quality data, muscle protein synthesis optimized by giving 15 to 25 grams of protein 0 to 2 hours after the workout, okay? That's a lot of protein. But again, you want to take advantage of the fact that this is when your body's building. Before exercise, this is sort of mixed results. You know, if you should have it or not. It is not harmful to have before. Carbs you need to have before. Protein, meh. Protein does keep the blood sugar stable. Like I love for the athletes, the bread with peanut butter. You know, for general, if you're doing a lot of weightlifting, it might be great. So a couple things so I do have a handout on some of my favorite ways to get protein. Protein bars are very lovely, but lots of them have lots and lots of junk. So actually, if anyone wants to try one of these, so these are RX bars. Easy to get, they're at Costco. One of my favorite tasting bars, the Aloha bars, taste like candy. They may be a little too good. What I'm looking for though is not added sugar. So like for this is dates. The other one I think is monk fruit. I'm looking for a good amount of protein. So this is 12 grams, close to the 15. Like really this would be good enough. And there's not preservatives in here, right? So that's what we're looking for. Protein shakes, a very good way to get protein in. I like the powders more than what you get in a bottle. The bottles are convenient, but when they are pre-mixed, they must have some kind of preservative in them. There are ones that are definitely better than other. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on one of the brands I like. Pure Life, Fair Life is a pretty decent one. What we're learning more and more when we look about environmental medicine is the harms of plastic on our system, okay? So the average adult undergoing autopsy has about a teaspoon of plastic in their brain now. So we want to avoid the plastic bottles when we can. Time to time, it's what's convenient. I'm not ever an all or nothing gal, but I do like the powders because you can mix those. Yeah.
Plant-based versus whatever the other one
Whey. So great question. Evidence, and again, this College of Sports Medicine, whey is going to be a little more effective. They're both excellent though. I do not have a problem with either. I definitely have patients who have gut issues with the whey protein and they do well with the plant protein. You know, if you're a bodybuilder, I should have put a picture of myself in here. He's so funny. If you're a bodybuilder, maybe you want like that maximum and get the whey, but really the plant is just fine.
And are there certain plant ones that are better than others? What do you look for in the kind of?
I like blends of plants. I don't like the single. So if you're going to get a protein source from plants, we're going to talk about complete proteins and that kind of thing. Animal proteins, many of them are complete. Plants are not. So I like something that's going to have a blend of rice, pea, you know, just have a couple different plant proteins in there.
Oh, that's good to know. I've only been doing the pea protein in Chobani, so.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people just do single plants.
Okay.
Yeah, but but I like a blend if you're gonna do a plant protein. And I do, which one did I bring today? This is a plant complete.
Where does he get that one?
So this is in my office. These are things that are in my office. You can get anything online. So now is a good sports brand. I look for things that are quality, that tend to be unadulterated. I always caution with Amazon, 99% I'm sure is fine. You will always find that adulterated kind of thing. This one has pea protein, quinoa protein, and hemp protein. So that's the blend of that one. But I also have the whey one. Okay. So fats. Another thing that gets vilified sometimes because fat has more, basically this, fat has more energy than carbs. But we need fats. Fats are essential for making cell membranes, for making hormones, for absorbing vitamins A, D, E, and K. If you don't have fat with those, you're not absorbing them well. If anyone's taking vitamin D, you should always take it with food with a little bit of fat, FYI. That's gonna help it absorb. Every gram of fat has 9 calories as opposed to a gram of carb and protein has only 4. So you're getting more energy from fat. You need smaller amounts of fat, but you do need it. About 20% of the calories is the minimum. I usually say if you look around 35, that's a good amount of calories from fat. Best to be unsaturated. So saturated fat increases LDL cholesterol. All saturated fat. So and saturated fats are things that turn hard when they're cold. So your red meats, your fried foods, your dairy, your coconut oil. So coconut oil, a lot of times people think, well, that's the healthy saturated fat. It probably causes less inflammation, but if you have cholesterol problems, it increases your LDL. So things like avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds, not the seed oils. There's a whole thing on seed oils. Seed oils are fine in small amounts and when you don't cook with them. So for an example, lots of recipes have a sesame oil, gives that delicious taste to a lot of Asian dishes. Put that in after the cooking is done. So you get that flavor, but you don't, when that heats, it has a very low heat index or burn index. There's another word for that. Smoke. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And that denatures it to something that could be harmful, okay? High fat, low carb diets, these are very popular, keto. I'm not a huge fan, again, I like the good old anti-inflammatory diet, a little bit of everything. There are people who want to do this and be big exercisers, and it's fine for your general day-to-day exerciser. If you are an athlete, you will never perform as well on a keto diet as you do with carbohydrates, because like we said, carbohydrates give the best energy source, best ATP. There are some athletes who will say, well, I'm only gonna eat carb before I exercise. Your body is not used to using those glycogen stores. It just doesn't work efficiently. So I don't recommend this for anyone who's competing. If this is what you love, it's not my favorite diet, you can do it. We're gonna go a little quick on hydration. I put some of the science thing in there in case people were interested, but basically, I think we all know that we need to be hydrated, right? Peak performance is gonna happen when we're hydrated before, during, and after exercise, okay? Pre-hydration, particularly if you're doing an event, or you just wanna make sure that you're well hydrated before you go in, there is a whole calculation up there. Basically, the bottom line is a water bottle this size is 500 mLs. So that is going to be good for most people before. If you get what I prefer, the reusable water bottle, this is 24, this is gonna be 800 mLs. During exercise, you wanna replete your losses. So if you're exercising for an hour, most people will lose about this much. So one of those during exercise, plenty to drink. And you should have that much. If you're really thirsty, listen to your body's cues. You don't have to have more than this. I see sometimes people with like 4 water bottles as they go into the exercise class. It's kind of funny. And you really don't need more than water unless you're sweating a lot. So we should replace sodium if you're doing high sweat activities. I see this on both extremes. I see in the gym the youngins the guys, sometimes girls, who are pumping some great iron for 30 seconds, and then they rest on their phone for 2 minutes. Go to the next. And they have like the biggest thing of Powerade that you could never need. Probably water is great for them. On the opposite side, I have my older patients who have high blood pressure and we're told not to have salt. And they go mow the lawn in 90-degree weather and they pass out and then they come to the emergency room or they come see me the next day and they were so dehydrated, but doc, you're not supposed to have salt. Well, when you sweat that much, no, even you can have salt. It is a good thing. Okay, now we're gonna move to supplements. So creatine. Creatine is a naturally occurring compound synthesized from 3 different amino acids, so it's not complex. What's interesting is that we get about half of it from the diet if you are a meat eater. So not that anyone would have an idea. The food with the most creatine, herring. Salmon, also excellent. Red meat, chicken less. Dairy and eggs will have some. Plants have very little creatine. Now, if you're a vegan or vegetarian, that doesn't mean you're not getting enough creatine. It's only 3 amino acids and most people will make it. But if you're a meat eater, you get about half from your diet, about half you make. Its job, 95% of it's found in the muscle. The other 5% is found in neural tissue, the brain and nerves, which is gonna play a role. It enters the muscle where it becomes phosphocreatine, and that's used to make ATP, which, like we said, feeds our mitochondria and gives us our energy. How this works for muscle building, so why do athletes take it? They take it because it has been shown repetitively in people of all ages that taking creatine regularly will increase muscle growth if you are doing resistance training. This is not exercise in a bottle, okay? Just taking it is not going to build muscle. But if you are building muscle, and this is something you want your muscle saturated, so you're gonna take it regularly, it does, by giving that extra ATP right there, it helps repair the muscle. And when we're exercising, we're making micro tears in them, we're breaking little parts of the muscle down, and it's that repair, that regrowth when we're done. That's how we build, okay? There is evidence for injury prevention. For people who take this, they're less likely to have injuries. Speeds recovery, like we said. And this is one of the things that's very interesting to me. Evidence for neuroprotection. This part is old evidence. So athletes who are in high concussion sports are less, if they take creatine regularly, when they've compared them to kids who didn't, or athletes who didn't take creatine, fewer concussions, fewer severe concussions, faster recovery. And that's been shown for a while. Now what we're seeing, so this is the new evidence, not in those papers, improvements in memory and cognition. So this is another reason why, if you're listening to podcasts on longevity medicine, people talk about creatine, like everybody should be on it, exercising or not, for prevention for dementia. I don't know that that evidence is there yet. It makes some sense to me why this may help. I recommend it for everyone who is doing resistance training, because it is going to help us build that muscle. Okay. We have 2 kits on the block for creatine. We have creatine monohydrate or HCl. Monohydrate, that's this here. It comes as capsules, it comes as powders. It's the old kit on the block, very safe. Down to adolescents, both International Society for Sports Medicine and American College of Sports Medicine say this is safe 13 and up, okay? Monohydrate does not absorb in the body well. So you have to take large amounts of it. No one has to load unless you're like an athlete. The problem with large amounts is it gives some GI upset, causes some water retention. If I have an elite athlete who's really looking to build lots of muscle, I still tend to recommend the monohydrate because It's the tried and true, like we know exactly what the right dose is. Newer kid on the block, creatine HCl, and I brought a powder, but it comes as a powder or a capsule. Very easily absorbed, very, very soluble. So people don't get the GI issues with this. And you need much smaller amount. So with this, it's only maybe 750 milligrams, where it's 3 to 5 for the monohydrate. Even in, I mean, I know I have a lot of elite athletes that will take this because they have GI issues. We know that it concentrates in the muscle. Like there's so many things we've seen, it just is newer for me to give that exact. Like should it be, for athletes, I'm definitely saying 1,500 milligrams a day, maybe 3 grams. But for anyone in this room, 750, it's a tiny scoop or 1 capsule, way, way less. And winds up actually being cheaper. Okay. Questions about creatine? Well, yeah.
Do you mix the powder with water, or is it something you mix like you have smoothies?
Yep, so you can do, so I mix, if it's flavored, I mix it with water. If it's unflavored, you can mix it with whatever you want. I personally really love this Concrete brand. I get the lemon lime, this is the raspberry, and it's a tiny little scoop. I'm just gonna, amino acids. So protein is amino acids broken down, right? There are 20 different amino acids we use to make proteins. There's over 500 amino acids to make things like genes and whatnot. But of the 20 amino acids, there are 9 that are essential. An essential amino acid means that our body can't make it. So the other 11, your body synthesizes by itself, but 9 of them you have to get through food. There's only a few plants that are complete, so complete proteins have all 9 amino acids. All of your meat essentially has it. Milk, dairy, so the whey, that'll have all of it. That is a complete protein. For plants, it's soy, buckwheat, or quinoa. Those are your complete. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't not eat meat. I mean, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, that's fine. But you want to make sure that you're having a good compilation of different proteins so that you're getting all of your essential amino acids. When it comes to supplementing with amino acids, there is benefit here. Do people have to do it? No. What I really recommend for everyone here is that you get good protein in your diet, okay? There is evidence though, that if you have free amino acids in the blood, so when you take protein, you have to break them down into amino acids before you turn it back up into muscle, which is protein. If you have those free amino acids from a capsule or a powder in the blood, you actually can increase protein synthesis regardless of what your protein intake is. So there's a couple different forms. There's, next slide. There's essential amino acids and branch chain. Essential amino acids are all 9. I actually even have, oh no, here's the essential. So essential amino acids, all 9. I recommend this for people who don't get a variety of protein. They're just not, they just are having trouble getting that 100 grams of protein a day. If you're good at getting protein, just the branch change. So this is leucine, isoleucine, and valine. It is the 3 amino acids that make the most impact on muscle synthesis. These I have people take again after. So creatine every single day. If you're going to take amino acids, you can just do it on days of lift. Okay, you don't have to take this every day. Caffeine. I'm going to throw this in here because people here, yeah.
So for the amino acids, is there a certain time of the day that you would take that?
I take it post-exercise.
And how about in combination with caffeine? Is that not a good idea? Like, does that negate?
Doesn't matter.
Effects? It doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter at all. Nope, you can
Well,
totally.
you're talking about caffeine.
Yeah, and now we're gonna go-
See,
so-
this is a great segue.
So caffeine is a supplement that is talked about, again, in those big papers as something that you can choose to use to enhance exercise. Here's the things about it and how to use it. And I'll give the stories of my kids to make fun. So it does increase mental focus, perceived energy. It does, several studies show that it can increase performance. Caveats, it has side effects at high doses. too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So like when my son decides that he wants multiple cups of coffee because he's a javelin thrower now, but he's got a lot of time in between. By the time he gets to the end, he's jazzed. The optimal time for caffeine is an hour beforehand. It really does need to get absorbed to have its effectiveness. So again, going back to all those, even college sport athletes, they get their super coffee like 5 minutes before they go on the block for their dive, or for their swim. Not enough time. And it's also, interestingly, the kind of thing that if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. Like the optimal dose is about 208 or 210 to 410 of caffeine. These drinks all have like 100 milligrams. Red Bull, I think, is 80 milligrams. They're really not actually that high in caffeine. So if you're going to use caffeine to get your best performance, get a cup of coffee. Or or look for those. There are actually energy supplements that have caffeine, but you want to have the right amount. Again, I'm not promoting this as a strategy for the general exerciser. I just want you to hear about it because it's out there in the literature, and we see so many drinks that have caffeine in it. I think the caffeine drinks, if you like to have caffeine, for your morning or whatever, but in terms of day-to-day exercise, this is not something you need to add. This really should be pre-performance. And if you are a high caffeine user, extra is not gonna help. So this only helps if you are a 1 to 2 cup of coffee a day.
Is that also in combination with carbohydrates or protein? If you go with that alone, it's not a good idea?
Caffeine, oh, right, not just caffeine. You definitely wanna have carb beforehand, like carb 1, 2, and 3 beforehand to prep you for that activity. This will give you a little edge. And this is, again, this I would say more for the athlete. The last thing, almost last thing, I'm gonna talk about is beetroot. So beetroot increases nitric oxide by causing vasodilation, opens up the vessels, and that increases oxygen delivery to tissues. Its effects when we're talking about exercise are on increased endurance. So it's not gonna increase speed, it doesn't do the performance, but endurance and decreases the muscle fatigue. The best evidence actually for this now is in the non-athlete. So the athlete who is exercising all the time, their cardiovascular system is so in tune, they don't really get a lot of extra vasodilatation because it's just this finely worked machine. But for any of us, even if you're healthy, usually beats do make a difference. Best taken 1.5 to 3 hours beforehand, so it requires a little bit of timing. The common ways to get it are juices or powders. So the juices, they come like that, they're shots. I actually have chews, if people are interested in that. Where I use beets a lot, some people like it for exercise. I love it for mildly elevated blood pressure. Some people will use it for erectile dysfunction, like things where we just need to improve blood flow. This is never gonna be the only treatment for something like but in addition to, or if symptoms are mild, you're kind of like on that cusp. I use it a lot with the, should we start something for your blood pressure? Let's see if we can get away with just some beets. And often I do. Can't have beets or shouldn't have beets if you are a fluent kidney stone producer, because it is high in, all beets are high in oxalic acid. And I always tell people what comes in goes out. So red urine, red stool, don't be alarmed. Okay, this is the last one I'm gonna talk about quickly, urolithin A. Now this one is a newer supplement. So it is not one of those tons of data in those recommendation papers, the position papers, okay? Urolithin A, it is a postbiotic, meaning it's something that your gut microbiota produces. Only about 30% of people actually have the bacteria that produce this. It works by increasing mitochondrial turnover. You may have ever, if you ever listen to longevity people talk about autophagy, ways to help your body break down dying and damaged cells and reduce. That's a regenerative process. This does this specifically for mitochondria. As we age, I mentioned, we have trouble recycling our mitochondria. We need our mitochondria to build muscle. So one of the landmark studies for this remember, this is newer, so 253 participants, I think. These are not big studies. For supplement, actually, that was a pretty decent size, but you're never gonna have pharma. Average age was 53, average BMI was 29. These were non-exercisers. They were given 4 months of urolithin A. They had an increase in muscle grip strength. Now, they didn't exercise. This was not exercising, this was literally, so where I said creatine's not exercise in a bottle, this is actually a little bit. I would never ever suggest take something and not exercise. But without doing anything else, 12% increase in hand grip strength, 17% increase distance in a 6-minute walk test, just with this. And now they've had lots and lots of other evidence studies coming out, actually now used, so this was in the non-exerciser, that was sort of their landmark one. They've done it in exercisers. It's a really, really interesting supplement for longevity. It's newer, it's not cheap, I can't sell it in my store. On the back of your coupon, there's actually a link if you're interested. That's the only way that I can recommend it, and they'll give 20% off. You know, it is pricey, I will say. I think it's $125 a month, but it is something I use. I think the data on this is really, really strong.
Is it a complement for creatine? Like, would you use
It is a complement,
It is
yeah.
a complement.
So for me personally, I do both of those things. And this isn't every day, again, like creatine is. So that's basically it. So just sort of a quick rundown. Pre-workout carbs. Right before workout, you want easily digestible, but throughout the day, you want things that are complex carbs that are gonna sort of stay with you. I'll try one more time for this. Hydration, maybe a little pre-hydration, one water bottle's gonna do. You can consider caffeine or the beet juice. During exercise, more than 45 minutes, add a little bit of sugar. It actually will help you go longer, will help you not feel as fatigued. Not adding a lot of calories, and you know, so rather that's a little glucose in a drink. I gave you my favorite hydration drink recipe here. Make sure that you're hydrating. About this size is perfect. Adding a little salt if you need. Post-workout protein, can't say that enough. Hydration and talk about the other stuff. And that's it. Any questions?
What vitamins do you recommend just on like a daily to just, you know, for immunity?
Yeah.
Or just, you know, like
Yeah.
vitamins you recommend?
So I do try to individualize it as much as I can. I do like to see, I like to check people's at minimum B12 level, vitamin D level, iron studies, and those are all things that can go through LabCorp, and you can ask any doctor to get those things for you. Everyone needs a multivitamin, a good multivitamin. And so I usually am looking at, I'm a less is more when it comes to number of pills. My favorite one is called ONE by Pure Encapsulations. It's got 2,000 of D, it's got 500 of B12, it's got 25 of zinc. So when you talk about immunity, things that have been shown to decrease rates of colds and illness in the winter predominantly. I think that's what a lot of people talk about. The strongest evidence things, right? Like there's lots of mushroom, there's tons of things, but vitamin C, preventative, not treatment. Once you have the colds, it doesn't help. And again, there's mixed evidence, but the overall trend is positive. Interestingly, in exercise, in your athletes, the evidence is the strongest for vitamin C and cold prevention. Zinc, we know that people need zinc, and that's one of the things that is really not found well in our soil anymore because our soil is just over-farmed. And then vitamin D. This really, if you are vitamin D deficient, you're more likely to get respiratory illnesses, and this became incredibly evident during COVID. Like even all Western doctors now were like, we should check vitamin D. And should we treat with vitamin D? Just like vitamin C, once that ship has sailed, once you have the cold, it's not going to help. But those are the things that I recommend for immunity, and I love when you can get it all in one vitamin.
What was the name of the multivitamin?
Here.
One?
It's ONE
I go to her, so this is.
by Pure Encapsulations, yeah. There's a couple
Thank
of
you.
different ones, and again, you know, sometimes I get to do nutrient testing where we look at big compilations of nutrient panels. I do like to be individualized, but I do think everyone needs a good multivitamin. I think everyone needs good intake of calcium, male or female. You are best getting that from your diet. Dairy is inflammatory, so with the exceptions of your fermented dairy. So yogurt, kefir, okay. Other dairies really irritate the GI system and cause potential for things to get across that shouldn't get across. So great sources would be things like soy, green leafies, prunes, interestingly, some of your melons, I have a whole thing on looking for calcium-rich foods, but trying to get good calcium from your diet. And then I individualize, I see what people's nutrition are lacking and where do we need to add. I try mostly though to get through food as much as we can, realizing everyone needs at least a multi, and usually maybe a little bit more.
Thank you.
This would be ONE, is there like a difference, like a version for men or for women?
Nope, it is
All-
a one size fits all.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I do have all kinds of different, but honestly, that's the one that I use the most because it fits most people.
Do you recommend a methylated multivitamin?
So that one actually does have methylated forms of B12 and folate
Oh,
in
great,
it.
okay.
Because about a third of the people have the MTHFR gene, and they have some people have a lot. Some people are homozygous for that. They're gonna have a lot of trouble with methylation. Lots of people have a little, so I usually, recommend that. To be honest, even if you're not a good methylator, you can overcome that by high doses of anything. So it's not the be all end all, but yes, most of what I have has methylated form in it.
The 56 grams of protein,
Yeah.
I find that.
Which is not enough.
Possible, even though it's not enough. For example, can you give us an example of what you eat in a day,
Yeah.
protein-wise?
Yeah, okay. 22 grams in one scoop. I have a recipe, I don't like coffee, but a lot of people like coffee. You can put this in a smoothie. That's, that you can have this as a breakfast without eating breakfast, okay? Eggs are a great protein source. Chicken, are you a vegetarian?
No.
Okay, so your lean meats have got a lot of protein. Focus on the protein. So I used to give myself little bits of protein because I didn't want the calories. I wanted it from the potatoes, the things that I really wanted to eat. Now, a nice chicken breast, there's 40 grams of protein in there. You get a ton of protein in there. A slice of salmon. Again, you're looking at everything, judging with calories, but I do think the way that I get it, a collagen, I also do like collagen. Collagen is not great for building muscle in terms of your post-exercise, but as part of your grams of protein per day, it's fine. And most collagen powders are gonna have around 10. So around there. So between supplemental things, again, a bar. I'm not a big processed food fan at all. I will sometimes use a nitrate-free, no antibiotic meat stick as a way to get 9 grams of protein quickly after I exercise, with only 90 calories, 75 if you do turkey.
Does your powder have a flavor?
So this one is chocolate. I have chocolate, vanilla, mocha, and there is unflavored.
Oh, there isn't flavor, okay.
Yep.
Because I do smoothies a lot in the morning.
Yeah.
Like a green smoothie, I throw
Yeah.
a bunch of greens.
That's a great way.
So I'm looking for something like that, but unflavored, so.
Right, yes, they absolutely come unflavored. That
But
you
if
can
you
put into
wanted to,
things.
you could mix it with almond milk or water,
Mhm.
like you said, and have a complete 22 grams of protein, just the powder and your liquid.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And again, I don't like coffee, but this has become big with having it as part of your morning. I will tell, so in terms of intermittent fasting, you really want to, once you're over the age of 50 for sure, maybe 45, intermittent fasting for women is not a good eating strategy because we tend to have more issues with some cortisol fluctuations as we change. When you fast in the morning, your body appropriately is going to increase cortisol production so that you increase blood sugar, right? It's a stress response. Men tolerate this much better. And women, pre-menopause, tolerate it fine. There's something about afterwards, you don't want that cortisol spike because we just tend to be higher all the time. So I tell people, have, even if it's a couple tablespoons of yogurt, like Greek yogurt's another great, little cup of Greek yogurt, 15 to 17 grams of protein. You can even just have a few tablespoons of that in the morning, and that will, you know, calm any cortisol spike from happening. All right.
I saw a dietitian, nutritionist recently who told me that you must combine carbohydrates and protein in order to build your bone or to maintain your bone. Because if you don't have a certain amount together, then your body will pull from the protein from your bones instead of building bone or maintaining the bone you already have.
I can't say that I've seen that. I'll look that up, but in terms of, we don't pull protein from our bones. I'm just thinking about this, our bones are calcium. That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, so, yeah. All right. They have
Thank
another
you
thing
so
coming
much.
in.
Yes, thank
Thank you so
you.
much for coming.